Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Modern Adoption, the podcast where we explore the frontiers of adoption, striving to modernize every aspect of this complex journey. My name is Jess. I'm a two-time birth mom.
And my name is Erin. I'm a two-time adoptive mom, and we are your hosts. Each episode, we bring you insightful interviews with experts and discussions on the latest advancements in adoption. And we're not just here to talk, we are here to inspire change. Okay, so in the world that we're in today, there are so many different avenues to share your family's adoption journey. You can have an online profile, not just in one place, but in multiple places. You can have a website dedicated to you. You can have a profile, a video. You can have a profile book. You can utilize social media. There are no shortage of options on an adoption journey for families. In fact, sometimes it could kind of feel endless in terms of where should I be? But with the widespread availability of online profiles and profile videos, you have to wonder, are profile books a thing of the past? And our short answer is no. Profile books are as important as ever. And that is why we're going to dedicate a podcast to it today. So I think, Jess, to start, I'll hand it over to you, and why don't you talk through, like, what is a profile book? If I'm an adopting family, do I need one?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes, you do need a profile book, but that can encompass a couple of different things. Your profile book is essentially a picture book or a magazine or a photo book that introduces you, lets an expectant mom get to know you, your family, your story. And truly, at the end of the day, the purpose of a profile book is to give an expectant mom a glimpse into your life, because ultimately that is the life that her child could have. And there's a couple of different ways that you can create a profile book. You can create it and just have the digital kind of PDF of your profile book linked to your website, your online profile, but you can also get those printed. And I think printed profile books is a lot of the time where people feel like they're outdated, they're a thing of the past, but
I mean, I did.
Yeah.
I was like, what? You want to make this? Like, why? As soon as I print it, it's going to be out of date, because I didn't fully understand how they're used.
Yeah. And they're used in so many different ways. You can, 99% of the time, the professional that you're working with is going to require that you create some form of a profile book, whether it's through a service that they offer, someone that they partner with, whether they just kind of give you some recommendations of these companies create profile books, or you are truly left to kind of flutter in the wind and figure out how to do it on your own. Your professional is going to want some type of a profile book from you, but then you can utilize them in a lot of other ways on your journey. You can utilize them in additional outreach to share with your network, your community. There are a lot of professionals across the US that hold profile books. And so you can
What
get
does that
them.
mean? Let's just make sure, when you say there's a lot of professionals across the country that hold profile books, what does that mean?
Yeah, there, there's professionals across the US that have a really nominal fee to sign up with them. They're not often those full agency fees where they charge $5,000, $10,000 to be a waiting family. Some of them charge $200, $500. And then there are some professionals, a lot of attorneys, they don't have a large, matching program. They hold profile books oftentimes for free for when an expectant mom does come to them.
Or like a hospital social worker.
Yeah.
The attorney that we use would get phone calls from the hospital saying, like, hey, there's a baby born, we need a family. And he would call his client list to say, here's the situation, are you interested?
Yeah. And so it feels a little bit archaic sometimes to, create this photo book or storybook and get it printed and, send them out. But they're really, really useful and valuable. And to get them printed, they're usually a pretty inexpensive tool to use on your adoption journey.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, okay, so you mentioned because there are, I mean, for any adopting family that is like, oh yeah, I'll do a profile book. If you Google it, I mean, there is a wide range of fees
Yeah.
associated with it, and like like in our professional network, even there's some agencies that they like you only a one-page handwritten profile book is all they recommend versus we'll see books that are stunning, like coffee table quality in terms of, like the brochure of us kind of book. And so just talk a little bit about, is there a sweet spot in terms of those two extremes that you would recommend for families? And then I want to get into, the pricing and like, can I DIY this? So
Yeah.
first talk about kind of like, is there a sweet spot?
Yeah. Well, I think that answer is twofold because one, you obviously have to go with what your professional requires. And so if you're working with a professional that only wants you to have that 2-page profile book, that's great and that works for them. I, as a 2-time birth mom, do not think a 2-page profile book, you can't even call that a book, is enough. And I created a profile book for a family towards the end of last year. They happened to sign on with an agency that only wanted 2-page profile books. Their 2-page profile handout wasn't ready yet. And so they presented their full 20-page profile book that I created for them. And that expectant mom picked them because she wanted to know more about them than what was in these 2 pages. She had gone through 20 of these 2-page little profile handouts and never connected with any of the families. Then she saw their 20-page profile book and she chose them because she actually got to get a glimpse into their life, their story. She got to step into their world and see what her child's life would look like with this couple. And so obviously, you kind of have to go with your professional's requirements or guidelines. But for me, that sweet spot is like 18 to 20 pages because there's so many components to include in your profile book, but you also don't want it to be overwhelming and you don't want it to be too text heavy. So that 18 to 20 page or even 16 to 20 page really gets you to the point where you can share lots of information without it being overwhelming. You can do it in a way that it's easy to read
Mm-hmm.
and that it's not overwhelming because I think
Yeah. Nobody wants to
a,
sit down and read a novel.
right. And I think what is so important for adopting families to remember when they're creating their profile book is that expectant moms or expectant parents viewing these profile books are in a state of crisis and they're already overwhelmed with this decision, with the circumstances in their life that are leading them to be considering adoption. And so the last thing they need is to be overwhelmed by difficult, content overloaded profile books. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you're designing your profile book or creating your profile book, you really want to meet expectant parents where they're at. And that means making sure that your profile book doesn't overwhelm them and it's also mobile friendly.
Mm-hmm. That's a super important one that a lot of the profile book creators out there don't think about. Or
Yeah,
they're
I
like, I
was,
want to turn it into a flip book for me so that, and you're like, well, as long as that flip book is incredibly mobile friendly, because otherwise you're going to be, it's
yeah,
actually going to complicate the experience.
I was looking at, I had a family reach out and ask me to give them some feedback on their online profile. And they had linked their profile book. And so I was looking at it and it's a good profile book, but it was created in Mixbook. And
Mm-hmm.
when you upload a Mixbook
Super
photo
hard to
book,
read on mobile.
yeah, instead of, a traditional profile book, at least the ones that we design, and I know a lot of other profile book creators design, when you're viewing it on mobile, you see one page at a time and you can
Mhm.
either scroll through or you flip through. But with Mixbook and Shutterfly, on one mobile phone screen, you see 6 pages.
Hmm.
And so you can't read it. You can barely see pictures. And it's not a good user experience
Yeah.
for expectant moms.
And I think Shutterfly too doesn't have like the watermark across the
Hmm.
book too. So yeah. And so
They're great when you print them. It doesn't have the watermark, but to upload it to and host it, online on your profile, puts a big watermark across it.
So let's talk about this because we at Pear Tree are not of the mindset like you can't DIY. In fact, you can DIY these books. You don't have to because again, the price ranges for these books, I mean, what's the most typical range that we see for a 12 to 18 page profile book ish?
I would say 750 to 1100 is, but
Pretty
I
standard.
yeah, but I mean, I've seen profile books go up to $2,000.
Yeah, and sometimes that and most likely that doesn't you're paying extra to have it printed.
Mhm. Yep.
And so it's not a small expense. But in terms of being able to DIY this, so for families that like, we get it, adoption is so expensive, and you're like, oh, now I have to spend another $1,000
Yeah.
to build this thing. So how can families do it for less?
There are one, you can completely do it on your own. You can use a Shutterfly, a Mixbook, Canva. With Canva, anyone can be a graphic designer. Um, Free version or pro version, Canva is a super useful tool. There are some profile book creators and companies that offer DIY templates. You can go to Etsy and Google adoption profile book, and there are hundreds of templates that you can purchase for $30, $40, $50. And so those can be a great tool. My advice, not even just as someone who creates profile books, because I know profile books are expensive. And so I am happy to help families figure out the best way to create them on your own. But there are a lot of benefits to either using a profile book creator or at least spending the money to book a consult with someone to help guide you or walk you through it. Because a lot of times with these templates, you're just dragging and dropping photos into boxes in a template and you're typing into a text box. Well, those text boxes and that template doesn't help you tell your story. It doesn't make sure that you're using the right adoption language. It doesn't check that you're, referring to expectant moms or expectant parents as expectant parents, not birth parents. Um, and it doesn't make sure that you are keeping expectant parents at the center of your profile book, which is something that you really need to focus on.
Yeah, and this is kind of the spoiler alert in terms of like some of the tips that we see or some of the mistakes that we see families make. I think I call it kind of pacing. Like most people are like, and I understand too, my background is in marketing, and so this stuff makes sense to me, but to a lot of people, like marketing doesn't, it's not common sense. And so they're like, all right, well, I'm just going to put pictures in there. But it's not just about creating a profile book, it's about creating a story,
Mhm.
like this, the authentic story of you that will pop off those pages as she's reading them. And it's not about creating anything like false or making your life seem better than it actually is or anything. It's like,
Yeah.
how do we tell the story of us? Because there is, and this is what we tell families all the time. There is something authentic to you and
Mhm.
your story, to what has brought you to this point, to your hopes and dreams for the future, to how you feel about this woman reading your story, your philosophy on parenting. Like there is something that is authentic to every family, and that is where I think a professional does a great job in terms of providing guidance as opposed to just, slapping a bunch of photos and like, here's our grandparents, here's our neighborhood, like great. She's looking at 7 other versions of that too. So like, what is it about that neighborhood?
Right.
What is it about your extended family? So that is like, and that kind of pacing throughout is where I think professionals add so much value in this process, but not that the professional has to do everything for you. Like, for example, a small plug for Pear Tree is, like for you can meet with Jess for an hour and she'll provide guidance in terms of like,
Mhm.
and even review the final book. So like that's the kind of stuff where like you don't have to spend $1 million to get this done. You don't even have to spend $1,000 to get it done and get it done well so that it becomes an effective tool for you. And then just the other thing that I say about that is, as a person that's created 2 books, is we have those in just, like our bookshelf. And it's a really cool thing that my husband and I revisit to say, like, are we staying true to this?
Mhm.
In terms of like our parenting philosophy. And because it's a little bit like when you get married, you create vows, but you really have no idea what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And so it's like a great thing to kind of revisit and just kind of you know, anchor you
And
into your parenting.
expectant and birth moms hang on to them as well. I
Yeah.
have my daughter's family's profile book that they created, still on my bookshelf. I still hang on to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we always talk about modern adoption, like how we're helping to kind of modernize the adoption process. And so people are like, well, haven't videos kind of replaced this need?
Mm,
Spoiler, Jess has a really strong point of view about this.
I do, and they haven't, for lots and lots of reasons, but I think the biggest one is videos are a great way to, when they are done right. I have seen some atrocious videos, but when videos are done right and well and authentically, not expensively, they do not have to be done expensively. All of our families get access to a really great video creator tool, for free, but they're a great way to enhance your online profile. But that's what they are. They are an enhancement. They are not meant to replace your online profile. They are not meant to replace a profile book. They enhance and just give an expectant mom another level of connection and lets her see your personality in a way
Mhm.
that doesn't come through in a book, whether that's printed or, just online.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because people are like, it's not video or profile book, it's video and profile book. Because the
Yeah.
other reason is there are a lot of adoption professionals that still don't even use video or online profiles when they're
Hmm.
presenting to an expectant mom. They'll put
Yep.
an expectant mom in a room with a book of profile books that of families that align to her criteria with a cup of tea. Like
Hmm.
they don't. And so if you don't have a profile book, you might not even be able to be presented to an expectant mom because this adoption community is still like there's still some lag in terms of the modern protocols that
Yeah.
more I think adopting families are used to even.
And I think the other thing that we need to be more mindful of, with profile videos, is not every expectant woman considering adoption has the ability to safely watch that video. There are a lot of expectant women out there that make adoption plans in secret. And, videos have audio. Yes, I know, she can use headphones or whatnot, but that's not always the easiest option. And so if your sole way of connecting with an expectant mom is a video, um, I think you do yourself a disservice, but you also, can potentially create an uncomfortable and unsafe situation for an expectant woman.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about another thing that kind of drives me crazy is so we'll see it all the time that people say, "Oh, we offer profile books and online profiles." And when you see what it is, like, so an adopting family can go through and upload photos and, captions or something like that to their online profile. And then the system automatically will kind of spit out a quote unquote profile book. But
Yeah.
again, it's like there's no storytelling. It's literally
Hmm.
just the kind of print version of your online profile. Where if I was a family, I would be like, no thanks, because I know I'm going to be disqualified just, on arrival because it looks like crap. And I'm being like, if I am in a stack of nice profile books, like, who says like, oh, I'd like this one that doesn't look like they spent any time putting something together. So they clearly are not being considerate of where I am. And so I caution families, like when you say like, oh, they offer an online profile and a printed profile, like let's make sure that both of those mediums are being produced at the highest possible quality to honor the expectant mom's
Yeah.
experience, not
Yeah.
just check a box like, oh, I've got an online profile and a profile book now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then what about, I know you have a strong point of view about this one. What about AI to create your profile book?
We don't have enough time today to talk about all the reasons why I don't think AI has a place in adoption. But specifically when it comes to profile books and actually profile videos, because I have seen a adoption platform profile hosting company that relies heavily on videos in their online profiles. They give you the option for AI to create your answers when you are creating a video. You have the option for AI to write what you're going to say that an expectant mom is going to see and hear.
I can't
And then,
even I can't even fathom how disrespectful that is to an expectant mom.
like, as a birth mom, that is such a slap in the face to me. Like, first of all, we're already making this monumental decision off of a photo book, which seems like such a really small, minuscule way to make this huge, important, life altering decision and to basically choose the people that you're going to be in a relationship with for the rest of your lives in some way or another. You're choosing them off of, you know, a photo book or a profile. But then to dehumanize that so much to where you're letting artificial intelligence spit out the answers to get an expectant mom to choose you, like that is the ultimate slap in the face.
Not to mention just logistically, like the AI, some of the, like ChatGPTs of the world, like kind of ethical, positive, like adoption language, they are
They don't
not
know what that
trained
is.
in it. No, so
No.
some of the answers that they spit out to some of these things that we've seen was like, God, that is like offensive.
Yeah. And I talked about this a while back on an Instagram post that, I did on my personal page talking about the role of AI in adoption. And someone commented, well, isn't it kind of the same thing if you're using a service to create your profile book? Isn't that kind of the same thing as using AI?
Good question.
And it's an interesting point and it was an interesting question, but I still say no because at the end of the day, a family will answer the questions that I ask of them when I'm creating their profile. Do I edit it? Yes, absolutely. But I edit it for tone, language, yes, grammar, but I don't change their words.
Mhm. The
It's still
messaging.
there.
Message is
Yeah,
yeah.
it's still their message, their words, their story, their emotion. I'm just making sure, that they're showcasing themselves in the best way possible, but that they're also using the right adoption language.
Yeah, and what
Um,
we mean by that is like an example is like, families like, yeah, so if you're gonna, give up your baby for adoption, and
right,
we're like, hey, let's change that to place your baby for adoption.
right.
Like that kind
Or
of stuff.
yeah, and a big one that I see is, we're so grateful that you're choosing adoption. Hard stop. She hasn't chosen adoption yet. She is considering adoption. Even if in her mind she has chosen adoption, until paperwork is signed, that is still her baby. It is still her decision to make. She's still considering making an adoption plan.
Yeah, so that nuance that the
Hmm.
AI models just don't, they're not trained in it. They don't understand it yet. So you
Yeah.
can, yeah. But I do understand. So I think it's helpful for families to know because, it's intimidating to like, well, what do I say in this kind of thing? So I'd understand why people would want to have a little bit of a jump start in terms of that copy creation. But our point of view is like, hey, that's what professionals are here to help you do.
Hmm. Yeah.
Too. And again, like it doesn't have to be super expensive to have that jump start provided to you.
And I know, especially you having a marketing background, I have helped other families that had a big marketing background.
Yeah.
You're not any less good at your job or any less talented or intelligent or anything for asking for help with your profile book. There's no marketing 101 that teaches you how to create a profile book for expectant parents considering adoption. And so for any family, asking for help on your adoption journey is so important, and can really make the difference between an expectant mom actually reaching out to you and just flipping past to move on to the next family.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite stories about Jess is we had a family that, because of our Connect Pro database, so for anybody that doesn't know, we have this centralized database. So every time a family builds a profile on Peartree, they get put into the centralized database. And that database is accessible by over 100 adoption professionals, agencies, and attorneys across the country. And so when they are working with an expectant mom and they don't have a family, because a lot of them, again, to Jess's point, don't even carry a list of families, they'll hop into that database and find families that meet the criteria of a mom that they're working with. Well, this happened and they wanted to present, they had to have a profile book in order to present. And so this family met the criteria perfectly of this mom, but did not have a profile book. And so they reached out and they're like, we need a profile book. And Jess stayed up all night. And 8 hours later, they had the most gorgeous profile book to present to this particular mom. And they were picked by her. So I'm like, I guess we can jump into kind of some of the biggest tips for profile books here, because I think this is kind of tip number one is I know we are in 2024 and a printed profile book seems old, but it is still important and it should still be a priority. And you do not have to spend $1 million to do it. And if you want to do it yourself, that's fine too, but just make sure you're meeting with a professional, and that shouldn't be more than a couple $100. But make sure you're meeting with a professional to help guide that process for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can tell when you don't put effort into your profile book. Not even just is it going to stand out against other profile books, but also when we're reading it and just looking at it, we can tell when you don't prioritize it and put your heart and soul into it. We're putting our heart and soul into choosing you. The least you can do is, make a concentrated effort into making your profile a priority on your journey.
Okay, I've got one more question on this one because I know this is always a big one for families is, do they have to have professional photos?
No, please, no. I know that there are a couple of profile book companies that require you to have professional photos for your profile book. And I think it's a waste of money. I think they're inauthentic. I think an expectant mom can see right through them. If anything, I like two, and they don't even have to be professional, but you need 2 to 3 really good, high quality photos for your covers, because those photos are going to be so big. And when you get it printed professionally, they do need to be a really high quality. But please don't go spend $1,000 and get a lifestyle photo shoot.
I know, like the color coordinated in a wheat field. Please don't do it.
Yes,
Please don't do it. But you
I
know what?
know.
And I would say like the resolution of iPhone photos now, like
Yeah.
that original size, like set it up, set your phone up, set the timer, press go, get some photos, like that is just fine. And in fact,
Hmm.
I think that like the books that Jess is creating for families through Pear Tree is like the mix of like a nice professional photo on the cover, and professional doesn't means like iPhone is fine.
Yeah.
But those candid images are what I think bring families to life versus color coordinated or families that default to just showing their wedding photos or something like that.
Hmm.
Like, that doesn't tell the story.
Right. Is there a place in your profile book for celebrating those big moments like your engagement, wedding, graduations, things like that? Yeah, absolutely. But when your profile book comes alive when it's candid, it's authentic, you're seeing the moments in photos that are real. When those photos truly capture a moment or a memory and aren't staged, that's when your profile book comes alive. That's what an
Mhm.
expectant mom is going to connect with.
And I'm always a big believer in like something a little bit unexpected.
Yes.
Like put something in there that has a little bit of stopping power and whatever it is. And the example that I give is my husband and I chose, we are silly people. And our profile picture that we chose was us probably 2 drinks in at a wedding at the photo booth. And he was wearing, or I was wearing a horse head and he has sunglasses on with a hockey stick, like, because that depicts who we are,
Hmm.
and that like we're goofy. And
Yeah.
so, and that was like, I think we should put this photo up front. And then a couple other like Halloweens where I went as Axl Rose and he was Slash, like that kind of stuff. And it doesn't, obviously have to be Halloween focused, but we love Halloween. And so that's a big part of who we are. And
Yeah.
so I think like think deeply about who you are, some of the traditions, your rituals, like what's important to you, and then let's figure out like what are the photos and the messages to bring that to life in a book like this.
Yeah. Which is, I think, one of the next biggest tips for creating your profile book is, Erin, it's what you say all the time. Be more afraid of being the same than you are of being different.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, and because I think people are like, I want to, that's why they default to professional photos and stuff. Don't default to
Mm-mm.
professional photos just because you feel like it checks the box in terms of, like putting you on par with other families. Like, what makes you you? And let's go find that image. I'm sure you probably have 10,000 of them on your phone already.
Yes.
That would like that brings you to life. That even on your cover, that
Mhm.
isn't just like you smiling. Like maybe it's you smiling on a hockey rink because you are the biggest hockey fans there ever is, because you never know what's going to connect with an expectant mom. And you want to, highlight the features about you, your life, your family, your beliefs that make you you, because if you're able to connect with an expectant mom who also values those things, like that lays a really healthy foundation.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, a couple more tips and tricks in terms of tips for profile books. I think the other thing that I see that I love when families get to work with Jess on these books is I'm incredibly verbose. Anybody that listens to this podcast knows it. And I write the same way. And so, like I will write 4 paragraphs and Jess is like, 2, or I'll write 500 words and she's like, how can we say that in 25? Again, because these women are, you're not the only profile book they're looking at.
Right.
And so, like we can't expect her to sit down and read a novel. This is meant to be a tool that creates some level of intrigue that she'd want to move forward to next step, probably meet you or have a call with you. This doesn't have to tell the whole story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I find is one of the hardest things with the families that I work with is they want to share everything,
Mhm.
every single detail about every single story, about every single aspect of their lives. And I get it. You want to tell everything and hope that something is going to connect
Mhm.
with an expectant mom. But you do yourself a disservice when you use too much copy because, like Erin said, this is one of hopefully many, many, many books professionals are presenting her with. But also, reading so much is really overwhelming. And the third thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that your profile book is mobile friendly. If she is someone that is looking at profiles online and she's looking at your profile book online, she's looking at it on a phone screen. And when you have 750 words on a
Yeah.
phone screen in size 10 font, that's
Mhm.
hard to read. She's not going to read it. She's going to scroll on. And you just do yourself a disservice when you have too much copy in your profile book.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's really great advice. All right. Should we jump to the magic wand, or do we have
I
more
think the
tips?
last tip for profile books before we finish this up is you have to make sure that you're keeping expectant parents at the center of your profile book, especially in that first page, your expectant mom letter, and then also when you close out your profile book. I think the biggest mistake that adopting families make in that expectant mom letter is they spend a lot of time introducing themselves or talking about them. And that is the last place that you should be talking about yourselves because you've got the next 20 pages to do it. And so that expectant mom letter needs to focus on her, make sure that she knows that you value her, not only the baby that she is carrying.
Mm, say that again, louder.
You have to remember that expectant moms are more than the child that they're carrying, more than the baby you are hoping to adopt.
Mhm.
Um, we we were people before we became expectant parents, and we are still people outside of being birth parents. That is not our whole identity. And so when you can make her feel seen and valued outside of, you know, essentially what she potentially is offering you, the opportunity to be a parent, that's when you really can connect with an expectant mom.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay. So let's do the magic wand, and not necessarily just about profile books, but profile books are used to give mom choice on an adoption journey. So let's make the magic wand about that today. So if you could change something kind of about choice and adoption as it relates to expectant moms, what would it be?
I wish expectant moms would get more choice in the adoption process and specifically in the adopting family that they choose. You know, it has kind of become a marketing tactic for professionals to say, you can choose the baby, you can choose, or excuse me, you can choose the family that you place your baby with. You can choose from all of these families. But in a lot of cases, what that really means is you can choose the family as long as you choose from these ones on my list, which
From
is
my families. This is
right.
that ownership model in adoption that we keep talking about.
Yeah. And so expectant parents are often pigeonholed into looking at 5, 7, maybe 10 profile books, but expectant parents deserve access to every adopting family. They should be able to look at as many families as they want, regardless of the professional that they're working with. And we just do a huge disservice to expectant parents when we're limiting their choice in the adoption process. Expectant parents deserve to look at 50 profiles if they want to, not
Mhm.
just the 3 or 5 that meet her criteria that are on your waiting list as a professional.
Ooh, can I add to this magic wand?
Yeah.
Because it's not even like it's a number, because adoption professionals will say like, well, we can't overwhelm her with profiles, and I totally agree. But what happens today is expectant mom, like, and we just had this happen with an agency where the expectant mom was adamant that she wanted an African American family, husband and wife, both African American, with an African American child already in the household.
Hmm.
And this agency that has around 100 waiting families didn't have one. And so they kept putting biracial families in front of her. And thank goodness this expectant mom kind of stuck to her guns and said, no, I want a fully African American family. And so luckily that agency is in our network. And so they were able to get into the Connect Pro, that centralized database. And we had 7 families that met her criteria, and one of them was chosen. But so this is the thing, that with the kind of the I don't even know what to call it, conflict in the
Hmm.
model of adoption today is, if an expectant mom walks into an adoption professional, that professional in today's model is not incentivized to have that mom get specific about what she wants, because the more specific she gets, the less likely that professional is to have a family that meets that criteria. And so that's why we see these situations that are just kind of like surface level characteristics about a family. Like,
Hmm.
she wants a a husband and a wife with this race in this place. And you're like, well, okay. Ooh. Like
That's
that family could
really
move next year. And so they're not going to
right.
be in that place anymore. Or, so they're like, those are kind of well, some of them are, race is not arbitrary, obviously, but some of those are. And so for us, it's like, it's not even like a number in terms of how many profiles she should see. She should just get access to all the adopting families that are
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
Or in
It's
the,
like,
like we can whittle it down to the US, but like there's the model of adoption is kind of what is getting in the way of giving her choice.
yeah.
And we know we work with I think the professionals that are in our network all know that, and that's why they subscribe to this idea of like, let's get our families on Pear Tree in Connect so that they're exposed to all the other adoption professionals who will be working with expectant moms, so that those moms are getting real choice, kind of regardless of. And obviously there might be a mom that's like, no, I want a family that is, has some criteria where the professional has that family. Great. But if not, like, if we really want to be mom centered, we should be letting her get real specific about what she wants, giving her more access to more options about, well, what's important to you, not these just kind of superficial things where adoption professionals are like, well, we need to have 4 LGBTQ families, 4, traditional like,
Yeah.
no, like, give her as many families as she needs to make this decision.
And if you don't have those families on your waiting list, go find them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I always think about Iris when we have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
She was in a teeny tiny Midwest town called the One Agency in that town.
Mm-hmm.
And she specifically said, I don't want a religious family and I want a same sex couple. And what does this agency show her? Christian traditional families.
Mm-hmm.
And she kept telling them no. That's all they kept showing her. And so she walked away and she went somewhere that she was able to find the family that she was looking for. But if you don't have the type of family that
BTW, they were pear tree families.
yes, very happy. But if you don't have what an expectant mom is looking for, go find it. It's not that hard to do.
Well, that is the job of an adoption professional. But right now, I don't want it to come down as like so hard on adoption professionals, because they haven't had access to other professionals' families until we gave them that service with Connect Pro. So, but like now the technology is there. And so we have this ability to, again, just like raise the bar in terms of integrity and ethics in adoption. So let's do it.
I couldn't agree more.
All right. That's a wrap on this one. I think we probably drug that on longer than anybody wanted to listen to.
But it's important. I think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Modern Adoption, and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss an episode.
And we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode full of education, insight, and important conversations.